Today we're gonna get that hair did. It's an older reference, but it checks out. If you were born in the 80s, you get it. Or the 70s. Oh, I was born in the 70s. You know that thing people do with their pens and it's fancy and they do, it looks really cool when they do it on TikTok? I don't know how to do that. I don't have the dexterity for it. I can do it with a knife though, oddly enough. Oh, got it. Oh, wait, no. That one keeps getting in the way. Got it. Oh, no, almost got it. We're gonna practice some hair today. Luscious, wavy, flowing locks. Obviously not that. This is easy hair to draw. All right, welcome back to the studio today. Thank you for joining me again. Today I want to get all up in how to draw. Hold on, my wake comb's turning on. I'm not the best at drawing hair, but I do enjoy it. Kind of, sometimes. Maybe. So I'm gonna go over a few things today on how I draw hair and how I shade it and highlight it. A lot of ways to skin this cat. Whatever you're doing with your hair, just have fun with it. That's all I can say. Have fun with it. Look at pictures, reference, all that good stuff. But we're just gonna freestyle today and come up with some fun hair shapes to play with and see if we can't render them out. Show you how to do that. Rendering hair in Clip Studio Paint. I think the biggest thing about hair to remember, other than big hair is cool, just keep it simple. Big shapes. Think big shapes first. That's where we're gonna work into big shapes down to small details. Okay, so let's get all up in that canvas. Who's ready? All right, well, first things first, we gotta have a head for our hair to stand on, right? So let's go ahead and get it. Let's go ahead and get a head. Anyways, 2 3/4 view. That's nice, that's fun. Block in a quick face here. And we'll do this first one female, because that's fun. They usually have more fun hair. Juicy lips. All right, I gotta put some eyebrows in here too. Just kind of establish some facial lines. Got ourselves some good bases to work on. I'm gonna get my pencil out, just straight up pencil. The easiest thing I found personally when doing hair is to establish kind of overall shapes first, like the big picture and how it drapes on the head. Form around the head first and the big overall shape of the hair. So this one, let's see, the brow line is generally about here. Oh, now we're talking. We got the pompadour going. That's a weird shape, but we're gonna go with it. See what happens. Nope, looks like an alien. All right, let's do a simple style first. No bangs. This isn't the 80s and 90s with the big bangs like this. My sister used to rock some big old bangs like that. We're not gonna go that hard with it. That's an attractive shape. The hair kind of folds over itself like this. Easy enough to draw. Big shape first, hair folding over itself. Okay, this hair's kind of drapey and do we like that? Yeah, that's not bad. Take that for now. So just keeping in mind, volume first. Volume and shape. Get that in there. Volume, shape, and bangs. I'm gonna go scratch through a few different ideas and see if we can't pick one out of the stack that we really like and want to render out. I think we worked out a few good ideas, and I'm going to go with this. This one right here is my rough idea. But I'm going to change the head shape and orientation just a little bit and see what we can't come up with. I think something to remember too when dealing with hair is in real life it doesn't actually have that much volume. It usually sticks pretty close to the head. But exaggeration in art is kind of what gives us some more unique, I guess you could say, interest in the piece. So a little bit of exaggeration in art, in a piece, art piece. It's not a big deal. I'm going to restructure the face just a little bit so that we have a little bit more of a foundation here. So I'm going to redraw this face kind of in a different pose. Put a little bit more detail into it just so we actually have a solid foundation. Sorry, I completely got lost in the weeds there because this is a hair tutorial. Got a little carried away with the face there. Kind of a angry, grumpy face going on. But anyway, let's start drawing some hair and quit beating that dead horse. We're going to use that as our style guide. We've got our brow line established here. Sometimes I find the first pass at hair, like your first go at it, is honestly the best. So I try to get it in there on the first go if I can, after my rough sketch and initial idea. I'm just using a pencil tool, so it gives a little texture to the hair. Wow, those lines are a little much. You know, that's a little more hair-like. Try to do as long a swoops as I can when it comes to hair. Oh God, it's starting to look like Jinx. Hate that character. I don't hate that character, that's not true. I just hate that that is all you see everywhere, is that character. That fan art of that. Like, let's do something a little different to that, maybe, for a change. Can we try something else, people? No, I don't know. I don't know where that, I don't know if I like where we're going with that. But let's just keep going and see what happens. Don't like it. Don't like that at all. New plan. Let's do some bangs. Let's do a mix here. Is that better? Or is that worse? Can't decide. I don't know. She's got an angry face, so the bangs kind of work. I feel like Karens with bangs are always angry. Oh, that might be a better shape. There we go. Hair pulled back thing going on like that. Plus some bangs in the front. Maybe she's just angry about her haircut. I don't know. Nope. Try again. It's getting a little lost there, so I went ahead and brought in some reference for this portion right here. We're actually going to mirror that just to kind of give it a little... Don't be afraid to use some reference. I like framing. I like the framing on hair when hair frames the face. It has this nice waterfall effect right here. So she's got a little bit of a part going down right here. Get rid of the knob on the back of her head. Like, I don't dislike that at all. That looks very attractive. See, sometimes just a little bit of reference goes a long way. So don't be afraid to take some reference and then adapt it to what you're going for, the look you're going for. See how the hair just kind of waves through here like that? When making these final lines, we're going to keep that in mind when we're drawing those tufts of hair as they overlap, because it's not a straight part. She didn't have like this straight hard line part going on there. Just got to keep that in mind. And you notice that the hair naturally does kind of fall close to the head, and most people, it's not really something that has these big dramatic volumes to it in real life, for the most part. It's not 100% a rule. It's a very plain hairstyle, but sometimes when you're practicing techniques, plain is better. All right, I'm gonna play around with this a little bit more and see what I can come up with. Alright, so I've got it all roughed in here. We had ourselves a really good reference image, and she was a really, really attractive reference image. This one we used here, and then we kind of built that off of that from a base. So I really like this manta ray shape in the front of hair. I know it's not really super practical, but I like the way it looks. So now I'm going to get in here and do some final lines and change the smile up a little bit. A little bit more of a smile here. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with a good smile. Pretty smile on a pretty girl. Alright, the head shape looks overall pretty good. Maybe a little bit tall on the forehead, but she's got a 5 head, so deal with it. I'm gonna go with my pen tool now, and I'm gonna grab, well, might as well stick with black because it's working. And I'm just gonna come in here and start pulling some lines. I like to establish kind of boundaries first for the hair. Hair has got a lot of pieces to it, so you can actually kind of get away with this scratchy, kind of inconsistently flowing lines. You want to make sure it makes sense, not just messy, but making sense. If you start to get too scratchy and try to draw every single hair detail in there, it's going to be busy. It's going to be overly busy, and it's not going to make as much sense, and it's not necessary. So establish some good lines, establish some good shapes and directions, establish your main form, I guess you could say, and then let the rest of it be implied. So that's as much as I'm going to put on that little. Now I've got a wave, kind of a wave going over the top here like this. So I'm going to minimize the lines coming off of that. And then as I come down here, around the outside edge, trying to get these as loose as possible, but as smooth as possible, establishing that outside form of the hair. There we go. We're going to start to add a little bit of overlap as we come into shaping the bottom here. So I'm not carrying my lines all the way up, but I'm leaving some implied, but still putting in a little bit of detail so you know, like, hey, this is the direction of the hair is flowing. Sometimes you may need to thicken up some lines to really kind of separate volumetric changes in the hair from one location to the other. And the other thing is, you don't want everything to start looking uniform. Like, you don't want, that is not very good to look in attractive hair. So if all of your lines start to converge and share the same width and thickness and depth all throughout, you're going to lose a little bit of the visual interest of hair, which is not a consistent medium. It actually has a lot of different volumes and shapes and lighting and tone to it. Okay, as far as outline goes, this is more than enough information to work with, so I'm going to turn this to multiply layer, lock it up, and then I'm going to start painting some hair in underneath it. On a new layer, I'm just going to volume it in. So let's get our hard airbrush out and fill this in, not with black. Okay, the bulk of the hair you can just fill in with solid color, but near the edges you don't want it to be too hard edged in some instances if you're looking for like a more realistic or mix style. So what I will do is take my pen that I have, and I will actually come in here and use a pen to finish out these streams and strokes going out. So I get that taper, but it's not solid wall-to-wall color and too solid all the way to the edge. Let's put it that way, because hair kind of has a fade to it. It just naturally kind of fades out into transparency and near the tips and stuff like that. So if you use a brush with taper set to opacity, so when as the taper and the pressure lighten up, the opacity gets lower, it will give you kind of a natural stroke for stroking in some hair. And you can actually wing it out like that in some of these fill-in areas. Just whip it right out in there, and it kind of gives you that body and volume, but not full saturation in between hair strands that you've actually drawn. So you're kind of drawing strands as you go, as you color. And I will fill in the rest of the hair this way. Okay, we are all blocked in, and we're all blocked in, ready to go with the hair. This is looking a little flat up here, that little section, so probably what I'm gonna do is, there we go, just feather it out just a little bit to make it look like where the hair attaches to the head. And if you find that the case anywhere in the picture, you can feather it out. Or if you like that really strict and structured hair look, then you can also just go with that. But this is a hard part here, where the hair actually attaches to the forehead of the widow's peak there and separates directions. That can be a little difficult. So let's go with, let's see if we like a red hair. I'm going to put my base on here first. Let's just get a base coat on here. There we go, red hair. Boom, done. All right. Cut, print, check the tape. We're done. I'm just kidding, we're not done. All right, we got our base coat on there. Let's pick a darker tone. So I'm gonna go a little richer with the value, or with saturation, as I go darker in value. And generally, highlights are up here on hair generally. So we're just gonna go with that general type of scheme on this one. So I'm gonna darken up the bottom just a little bit using a big airbrush. Getting me a little darker there. A little airbrush and get some dark underneath here, and a little bit down the middle of the part there, just kind of establishing some separation in values. And this, like I said, this is not the only way to do this. This is just the way I break it down. Now, right now, it just looks like a helmet. We don't want it to look like a helmet when we're done, but we gotta establish some values first. So I'm gonna pop up a little bit of a light value here, because this is where the light, say your light is coming from up here, or top light or normal kind of room lighting, or even outdoor lighting, you're gonna have more highlight towards the top of the head, kind of shaping around the crown of the head, following this portion, than anywhere else. So that's where my main highlights are gonna be. And now what I'm gonna do is pick up my dark again, and I'm gonna go just a hair darker, just a little bit. So I got default round mixer out. And pick up that dark paint. I'm going to add a little bit more darkness to it. Here we go. And I'm going to start working in some darker values. I'm using this mixer brush and just kind of painting in the folds, I guess you could say, or the separation areas between bulks of hair. And this is just subtly starting to separate forms within the hair and give some contrast and kind of depth and volume. So just real subtly working it in there. That wasn't very subtle, but whatever. Let's start with my darks first. It's gonna be a lot of back and forth. When it comes to hair, there's always a lot of back and forth. I'm gonna slam it in really good here, because that's gonna be dark, that's gonna be dark. All right, let's get underneath here where it's gonna be definitely darker. Separate that really good. Now I'm going to pick a mid-tone here, and I'm going to come in here through our kind of higher light area, the highlight, I guess you say, that area. And then I'm going to start drawing some of that mid-tone down into the darks, just on the edges and the fringes here, and up into the lights. Not bad. I've got a good value tone kind of established. Now let's pick up the lightest portion, and let's start feeding that up into top part of the head towards the highlight. So we're going to stroke toward the high portion, and then add just a little bit of value going down into the low. Now this is a shallower highlight over here, so maybe just stick to this being the darker side of the head. Now that I flipped that, I think I'm missing some volume over here. Well, we're missing some shadow from the face and stuff like that, so let's not get too caught up in that right just this second. Okay, it's bugging me. I gotta fix it. Okay, sorry, I had to get some tones and values in there to make this make sense to my brain hole. Let's carry on. All right, let's pick a highlight here. I'm gonna get my default round mixer back out, and I'm gonna start real high specular highlight on the hair. Very often has a hard edge to it, so you can almost just slap that edge right in there and then fade it out as it goes down, just like that. Okay, so you've got the ring, the hard ring of truth there. The truth of the hair is there. Now I'm going to fade this out just a little bit more. I'm using a mixing brush, so this is like an oil painting type of brush, so that it actually blends things really well. You can hammer into it and get yourself a hard tone, but you can also let it kind of fade into the other colors too, so it depends on the pressure you put into it. add a little bit of highlight here to the crown of the head, because this is an area of the head that actually catches a lot of light as well, so you kind of have a secondary highlight going on here, but it's subtle. You can be subtle with it, and use reference. If you can't find or make up exactly what you want to happen with the hair, just find a reference and go with that. So I've got my main shadows, main highlights. I'm going to darken this side up here a little bit, so add a layer, clip it to below, set it to multiply, and I'm going to grab the lightest color I have, because I don't want to go too dark with it, a gigantic big airbrush, and I'm going to darken up just this side over here a little bit, and the inside here, and the very bottom of this edge over here, just a hair, just so I can really deep, because she's got really dark hair scheme going on. Drop it down, merge below, go back to my round mixer, my default round mixer. I'm going to grab some of this highlight color here, and I'm going to start adding just a little bit of character and highlight to this part where it's reaching, where the light's reaching more of the hair. Just a hair, just a hair, just a hair. And then maybe start putting a little bit into these wisps where the hair separates, where one portion of the hair kind of maybe is distinguished from the other in its shape. And along the edges here, kind of rimming out the face just a little bit. I mean, real subtly, real subtle. Not big swaths of color to rim this out. And then separate this from the background just a little there. Subtlety is key, right? All right, now it's time to, you can do one of two things. If you really want to hammer in this highlight here, which I don't like the highlight to go all the way to the edge, so I'm going to blend it back just a little bit. Here we go. Blend it back a little here. Now, if we really want this highlight to stand out, we can do a couple things. I can add a layer on top of it, clip it to below, and set it to screen. And then I can pick this color up again, grab my airbrush, and I can kind of loosely go over this rim light area and pop just a little bit more in there. Or I can use this layer as just a straight painting layer to make sure I have going on what I like. Set it to color dodge, see what that does. Oh, there we go, see, color dodge. Yeah, that bumped it up a lot. All right, so that was good, actually. We're gonna kind of work in reverse here. I'm gonna lighten this up really good with my dodge, right? But I don't want it doing all of this here. So that's where grabbing a soft eraser, coming back in here and getting rid of where I don't want it to be too bright on too bright on the edges. And then down here, definitely don't want that brightness saturating down into the dark area there. So let me erase this gently. I'm just erasing a little bit at a time. And we're kind of moving into that comic book hairstyle kind of territory. All right, I'm going to grab a mixer, and I'm actually going to come in here now that I've got that kind of well established. And I'm going to pop in just a little bit more. And this is an oil paint mixer. So it's a mixing brush based on the oil brush, basically. You know, like regular old blending brush, the round mixer. And this is helping me sharpen up ever so subtly that highlight where it transitions. I'm going to dial it down to 50% of that and look at it. So that's the original without the effect added. And there we go. That's with the effect added at about 50%. So I'm not going full crazy bore all into it. Just adding a little bit to already pop the values that we already have there. Okay, so we already have those values established within the painting, and I'm popping them in there just a little bit more. I'm going to erase this back edge, the top edge here, just a little bit more. I've got too much bleed of that fuzzy, you know, oversaturated or over blended bleed or soft glowing thing going on into the hair. And you know, your hair doesn't usually shine that much right there, so that's a little bit overdone and maybe kind of comic booky. If you dial it back just a little bit, hammer it in there first, then dial it back to your liking. You could even go lower if you wanted, if you just wanted a little bit of subtlety to it, just a little bit. I'm going to stick with about there. All right, I'm merging it down. Boom, calling it done. All right, so we merged it down. It's now part of the layer. I've got those really strong values in there, and I basically have a simple hair piece done. I might come back in here and grab, and maybe just come in here and detail, do a little bit of detailing because this is kind of just a bland area. It doesn't look like much is going on. There's not really any texture or tone to the hair there. It's like a flat washed area, so a little bit of that. Or you can grab the default round mixer. All right, so I've gone into my brush size dynamics, and I'm going to actually taper this down really all the way to 0 on my default round mixer. I'm dropping it all the way down to 0. I'm gonna up the output just a little bit so that I don't have to put as much pressure on the brush. Pin pressure, that's about good right there. All right, so let's go straight in here now that I've tapered it all the way down, and that will give me a much better stroke that tapers off really well, so I'm not getting full saturation and full thickness in that. Same thing here, thicken up some lines, thicken up some darkened areas. Fade some of those darks into the lights. It makes it look more natural. And if you want to do this with a pen brush, you actually can. Or you set up a pen brush specifically for this, like hair or whatever. It's not too hard to do. It's kind of basic. Just base it off of one of the painting brushes. It's starting to look a little more natural. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing, working through the piece and just kind of going back and forth with this color to that color, this color, and kind of blending and putting texture into this thing to make it look more like realistic hair. That's kind of it. I mean, you can go further with it with highlights and stuff. So you could add a rim light. You could do stuff like that. You could paint in some really high grade highlights if you wanted to. Lots you can do with it. I mean, once you get your technique down for painting the main volumes of your hair, it's kind of just playing around with it after that and seeing what you like. See, I don't like that at all, so we're not going to go with that. Some of those cheap tricks like that, I call them, they work really good in some capacities and some mediums, but they don't work in others. So I just kind of stick to kind of classical, I guess you could say. Classical mixed with illustrative. And obviously you want to get some eyebrows in there too, because eyebrows are important to have, because we all look funny without eyebrows. I like to do them with the darkest color of the hair, basically. The almost darkest, like the second darkest tone in the hair is what I usually paint the eyebrows with. Just gives that more structure and, rigid, I guess you could say, outline to the face. Or not outline, but gives you more volume and structure to the face. I think that's it for today. That's a simple hair tutorial. Real simple. Not complicated. Not a fancy hairstyle. But the principles are all the same, honestly. You can apply these principles to creating a pretty attractive hairstyle in just about any shape and size. It just kind of changes with the lighting and with the face structure and with all those things. And this face needs some work. All right, thank you for joining me again. If you like this kind of content, art-related content, because that's what this channel is all about, like, subscribe, comment, share, and get in the conversation down below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for those who've been commenting and giving me some good feedback and just participating in what we talk about on this channel. So I'm gonna go back to struggling through some hair. Stupid allergies. All right, y'all be blessed. Yep.